Welcome to Vegas, guys.
Made it.
Yeah, Chris, stoked. Max, Chris, Dylan. This is the biggest podcast we've ever done. There's a lot of people here right now. Yeah. See how it goes.
Dude, we all got off planes like a couple hours ago.
Yeah,
right here.
Everybody just landed, right?
Yeah, 4-hour flight.
That's fun. Chris, why don't you introduce yourself? Start with Chris, and then we'll end up at Dylan. Introduce yourself, your backstory.
Yeah, so came from the legacy market. My name's Chris from Ghostbudsters Farms. Came from the legacy market. Now I'm in the commercial market in Michigan, in the metric market there, and more on the craft side, I'd have to put it towards, instead of like the heavy commercial side. So 300 light facility, nothing too big, nothing too small. But, proud to be part of the fam over here. It's been great. What you guys have been doing has, changed my life. So, that's where I'm at.
Max?
Yeah, me and Dylan have been to your spot. Fucking kill it, dude. So, props. I mean, we see a lot of spots and, game changer. But Max, Britt, I've been working with you for probably a couple of years now. Like you, came from the legacy market, caregiver stuff, and ran a couple big grows there in Michigan for a couple of years. And, started my Instagram real early, Dankums Hunter, and now working with the family, dude. Never been better.
Nice. Chris Durand, formulator here for Athena. I work here with these guys. This is really what I'm doing. You guys have problems, ideas, concepts. We try to distill them down into solutions. And, you guys are kind of here on this podcast today because, you help find solutions to problems with us. So thanks to you guys, I'm here.
Okay. Dylan Knapp, Mitten Master on Instagram. Been with Athena for actually just over a year, facility advisor. Get to work with the growers, black market grower myself. Proud to be in Michigan as well. So glad to be on another podcast. It's dope. It's cool.
You're doing genetics though too, right?
Genetics, doing just doing a little bit of everything, getting heavier into the genetics, along with the market, which we'll talk about and stuff like that. Just breeding's always been a passion.
Do you have a partner in that business?
I do, Mobile J. Shout out. He's downstairs taking a nap.
I get to meet the second half of this. That was my last podcast with Mobile J.
Yeah.
So
Shout out to you guys.
What's going on with that? Because are you guys, the DEA switched the law on what it is as far as cuttings and seeds. You're able to ship online?
Yeah, it's crazy. So, we personally don't ship genetics, that often. I hook my homie up once in a while if he needs something, right? But, there's a ton. We're working with some, Clone America. Shout out to Clone America. They're in the Athena family as well, out of Colorado. Jay and I work with them over there. They ship worldwide. So, we get our genetics over to them, right? We hunt stuff, we find stuff, we get it over to them. And then, they take it from there. And that's just a personal thing. I don't want to deal with mailing. It's busy, doing enough on the plate, you know what I mean? But there are a lot of companies now that are, legally shipping stuff all over.
Was like DEA rescheduled, what it means? Do you know anything about that?
A little bit. So they're looking at the THC percentage in it. So they're considering it in between of a CBD to a THC. So, or a hemp wise. So it's easier to ship and not really, I'll be honest, I had a bunch of cuts shipped to me, and I was sitting there and I was at my facility and I was shipping to my personal home address, and I'm sitting there and I get a federal agent that calls me, and they're like, "Hey, Christopher Michael?" I was like, "Yes, who is this?" And they're like, "This is so-and-so from the postmaster." And I was like, "Oh, postmaster, okay, well, what's going on?" They're like, "No, I'm a federal agent with the postmaster. We're confiscating your package for marijuana." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then they're like, "This is marijuana." I was like, "No, it's not." I was like, "There's actual license in there for the hemp." I was like, "So I'm gonna come pick it up." They're like, "Well, we already destroyed it." So they destroyed a bunch of cuts right there, and I actually drove down there to try to get them. They're like, psh, they wouldn't even let me in the door.
How long ago was that?
6 months ago.
Yeah, but I think 3 months ago.
It was. So that's how much it's changed, because I've had stuff sent to me, my personal address since then. Not even a question. And it's coming from the same place that they told me that where it came from, they were basically like already like anything that came out of that facility or where those were coming from were getting flagged immediately, waiting until it got to the destination. But it's crazy that they're able to call your cell phone. It was to my address, but they were able to get my cell phone number, right? Which that's really what kind of was like, I mean, they know everything already as it is, but
They already flagged you.
That's crazy. Yeah, the novelty items, the seeds, you know, so shipping seeds is no big deal, right? So like we ship seeds. The problem still lies in with the banking. You know, I don't want to put too much info out there, but our first seed drop, let's just say that all that money got seized. We didn't get a dime.
That's because you dealt with PayPal.
We dealt with PayPal. Yeah, we dealt with PayPal, but trying to set up anything through a bank, even with that right now, we've been going
credit
through.
unions.
It's a pain. It's a pain in the butt.
State-backed banks.
yeah. In Michigan, I mean, we all have to have it for, you know, the license side. So there's a couple credit unions that are very friendly and, you know, will look out for you. But at the same point in time, what you're doing, you can still go through I can give you the name of the credit union that we're using. They'll take it. They'll use you as a cannabis business. No problem, right? But the problem is for how you guys are going through on like the website of accepting payment. You're not just going to throw your ACH information up there,
Right?
Compared to like a click and a pay, where it's easy for PayPal and the other places to be able to,
It's
to
a,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah. It was definitely a rookie mistake for sure,
How much
but
you lose?
a lot,
Okay.
a lot of money.
Now, just from my understanding, a few months ago, 3 to 4 months ago, the DEA rescheduled to where you now, like a hydro store, now obviously check with an attorney, right? But hydro store, retail store can sell seeds over the counter. Doesn't matter the genetic, just matters that it's under 0.3 THC. Cuttings over the counter, that's completely legal as long as you can't take that cutting and test it and it doesn't test over 0.3 THC, then you can sell it. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these companies that are shipping nationwide, clones, cuttings, seeds. It's just like opening the door. And I think there's a lot of people sleeping on it.
Oh, dude, my email gets my work email randomly. I don't even know these companies. Someplace in Boston, there's all these clone companies. I'm constantly getting spammed emails now. It's insane.
Yep. And
It's crazy.
Just because of the new regulations. So we'll see how that goes. I know there's a lot of companies that are doing some stuff right now that are going to be pretty interesting. So you guys are from Michigan, and
Michigan's
Born and
strong.
raised.
what's the Michigan market like right now?
Kind of depends, you know. Grow some good weed, still get some decent prices. You don't have 100 lights in the trap, you know, you could still get, I mean, you got a lot of lights and you still get a good price for it, but
I mean, it's a supply and demand
is.
thing. Like
Hit or miss.
I've shut down a lot of lights because like I'm not gonna oversupply, right? Like I'm not gonna like I try to put my heart and my time into my rooms and good flower, just like I mean, and we still get paid. You still get good tickets. Good fire, good weed that's smoking still gets good tickets. And I know a lot of other guys that are more on the smaller side that they put their time in and they're getting good. If it's smoking, you're getting good prices. But there's a lot of people that for lack of better terms, aren't getting that product. And that's where when you go out of the category of fire and you fall into this, we'll call it mids market, you're in that $600 to $1,000 a pound, flooded at that $600 to $1,000.
On the like metric side, right? There's a lot of issues there. There's a lot of people that if you go and talk to them like as a facility wise and you ask them like where their labor's at and what it costs for them to like produce a pound, like trim done, like it doesn't matter like what's your PPE, what's your licensing cost, what's everything. I think I've had maybe 3 people be able to actually answer that question out of that, and a lot of people overdo where they're at on that, and then they're just putting out what they need to put out, and they're just trying to hit numbers, but they're not even doing that because, hey, okay, I was with a facility that their whole entire thing had hot blading. Set them back. I don't know how long they're back right now. Their whole entire facility went down. Like and it's a huge facility, and like, I don't want to say anything on camera. I'll tell you guys who it is off camera because, but yeah, I mean, this devastated this company, And it's crazy what can happen in the market, you know.
Yeah, there's no room for error, right?
No, there's not.
Zero room for error.
I mean, even if you grow good weed too, you got to have a name for yourself, you know. So
Yes.
any new guy that walks in still growing fire, like, it just doesn't really matter, you know. So some of these guys that have been around that have a name for themselves, that people know, you know, they can sell their weed. So it's really where the market's at right now.
In Metric, you look at the, you know, Chris, you know, he had you had a brand in, you know,
in the legacy market
in the
coming
legacy
in.
market, right? There's a lot
Let's
of
call it what it is, trap. I had a brand in the trap, and that's where, you know, I came from, and I think it's also the respect from that. And I'm not going to put something in a bag that isn't going to, that I wouldn't smoke just to get a number on it. If it doesn't make the, I've had
You called? I still remember that phone call.
Yeah, I've had runs where I've gotten genetics from breeders and literally had like 36 lights going on a 100 light room. I'm like, I'm fucking running all of this into hydrocarbon. Like, I'm done. I'm not doing it. I'm not putting anything out with my name on it. Not a live resin, like just like trim, like, you know, flower. It's not worth it because that's where you can really mess your name up in the market. And there's not a lot of cultivators that aren't looking and doing things different. And instead of saying like I run 10 tables, 100 light rooms, and I'm not like, now I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, this one's gonna be for rosin. This one really is good for hydrocarbon. So I'm gonna use these two tables, and all this is sellable flour that I'm gonna, you know, pre-pack and do whatever with. There's not a lot of people that are trying to think of that and scale of that and get different, you know, SKUs out and try to actually make it. But if you're not working with the right people and the right company and the, like, I mean, like with you guys as like facility advisors too, like not just like, you know, Athena is like a company itself. It's different. Like it's different than any other company that I've ever worked on. It's more than nutrients, you know, like that's the thing. It's so built above that. Like I can call either you guys, and I'm sure I could call Brandon or Chris even at like whatever time, you know, say, hey, I'm having a problem. This is what's going on, you know, and I'll get that answer, or at least be able to bounce it back with somebody.
And sometimes it's that second voice. It's not, we don't know everything, right? But if we bounce ideas off each other, we can figure it out together.
I mean, I've talked with JJ. I've never met like him personally, but like I've like been like, yo, Dylan and Max are ignoring my phone calls. Just
but there have been multiple times where like,
Bro, stay busy.
So like you may call me, right? And what you don't see is like I call Max, and Max can't figure out. He calls Henry. Henry's like, I don't know. I'm calling Chris. Yeah. Chris is like,
no, but that's,
and then it relays back all back to you like a big snake.
No, Henry's the best filter though. He really is. He's like, no, I've got this. This is fine.
I'll never forget the time where we were sitting in a meeting and you know, there were a company that we were talking to was like, I mean, what's stopping us from breaking this down and making this ourselves? And you were like, you're looking at it, you know, these guys right here, you know, so it speaks volumes, you know, what we do as a team, not just the product we put out. So it's the experience.
So you're saying mids are between 600 to 1,000 right now in Michigan. Right?
I'd say that's legal and black market.
Yeah.
Is Caregiver on par with Metric?
Fuck yeah.
It's about the same pricing across the board.
Yeah, I'd say same pricing.
Yeah, but I think that it's just like me being honest. I think that caregivers grow better weed. I do. I hate to say it.
Well,
like
they don't have as much to manage.
Yeah.
Well, but it's listen, there's so much, and I'm going to take that back. I don't hate to say it because the thing is that there's so many, you know, corporate sides that are just looking at this as like a nominational amount instead of like putting it like love into it. I mean, shit, I talked to Jay and it's like, that's the only guy I can call at like 3 o'clock in the morning and he's up in his room because that's when he works. Yeah. So, you know, he's a late night kind of guy, but that's it. It's like there's caregivers, like the caregiver crafted is, I think, that some of the best, you know, market stuff that's on the market right now, personally myself.
Yeah, because, I mean, me, you, our homie can work in our garden, you know, not compared to 20 employees sitting there trying to all do the same thing.
I mean, I have 4
Pride of
people.
ownership.
I have 4 people that run 300 lights in my facility.
Right.
I'm one of the 4.
Exactly, yeah.
So, you know, like, it's crazy because, like, getting into this and now it's like you're playing God in these rooms because you have so much availability to change things, and sometimes it's like too much. Like, it's too much data. And that's where you start getting lost in things.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some big facilities out there that crush it, you know.
Oh, of course.
And they got talent, but you know, most of them choke. So it's just too much to handle.
Michigan doesn't have any tax on cultivation.
They have a 280E that they do have, but you're able to, stores get hit real hard on, like the distros basically get hit real hard on the taxation. Processing facilities get a different tax bracket, and cultivations they can write off basically a large amount.
Yeah,
Not like how it is in California, like, because in California it's crazy what you guys have to pay there for
but from
taxes.
my understanding, in Michigan, there's no cultivation tax.
No, oh no, there's not.
Like, for example, here in Nevada, where I grow, there's 15% for the state, 3% for the city, total 18% gross.
Of just cultivation tax.
Just cultivation tax.
See, like, no, we have our 280 like everybody else. There's no cultivation tax.
So I have to pay 18% while you guys pay 0. Yeah.
And they're getting more.
Well,
Sometimes.
I mean, well, we're getting to that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so what?
For sure.
You know, if you're growing fire without a brand, what are you getting per pound without a brand fire? Not in bulk.
No, exactly. Like bulks, and let's say bulk like A's and B's, right? So that's like how the Michigan you'll consider it. So you have your A's and B's and your C nugs, right? So like instead of just like everything going together in one, they'll separate it even, where you have like your like prime like packageable will be your bulk. So and they're getting like yeah, even less.
Even less than that.
That's about the same on the.
Yeah, I have homies that hit me up that like are new into the market that are like, dude, my lights are about to get shut off. I need like 600-800, and it's like good weed. They just aren't.
My buddies grow some fire and they get 1,000 to 1,200, man. You know?
I was on the plane sitting next to a guy that owns like 16 dispensaries in the U.S. for Michigan. He said he can get nice ass pounds all day in Michigan for $600. Says he does a deal right now. Check this out. I don't know that. I forget the name of his dispensary, but they do 2.5 ounces for $99 out the door.
Retail.
Retail.
Wow.
Yeah, but here's the same thing. At the same point in time, that dude was telling you 10% of the truth. So like what he's actually getting, he's getting that shit. He may have gotten like, say he got like 200 units. He got 10 pounds at that price maybe. And then the other 190 is remediated, nasty, nasty, I can't even get into it. Like, it's like, I've never seen one of these ounces, and I go to stores a lot because, you know, I have to go there. I have to talk to the owners because I also take care of not just like the cultivation, but I'm also there on like the retail side. So like I go in there and make the connections and like talk with the store owners. And there's never been one time that I'm like, holy shit, I need that $50 ounce right now. You know, it's like, it's booty. It's seeded.
They aren't even putting it out, are they? I mean, that's all just.
No, it's in a black Mylar, so no one can see it, and it's sealed, so they don't rip it open in there, and then everybody evacuates.
Oh, there's a market for it, though.
There is a market for it. Yeah,
Big market for it.
There is.
What are you getting right now, packaged?
Package right now, 25 1/8 wholesale, so that comes out to 32 a pound.
That's good. You could do business at that.
Yeah, no, you can.
What's your cost to produce?
456 a pound.
Got the number.
That's good.
How do you how is that?
Because there's 4 people that are at the cultivation, and at the same point in time, it's the ease of having it automated, but you still have to be there. Like, okay, we have 4 people on a day-to-day basis. We do outsource when it comes to trimming. We hand trim everything, so we have trimmers that come in, and that's also put into that pound price. So like that is, you know, average right now in Michigan, and it is anywhere from like 100 to 150 a pound trimmed. Like when you break down the pound price, so you add that.
Impressive.
Yeah. So when you break that into it,
You think that's cheap?
Oh, that's really cheap.
I think that's ridiculously expensive. Everything,
It's my
everything for
highest
cultivation
cost.
has gone up except for the price of weed.
My highest
pounds trimmed
cost
for $50.
it's higher than my electrical.
How much? Do you know how much you're paying per kilowatt delivered?
7 cents.
You're paying 7 cents.
Yeah, shh. No, I'm just playing. No, yeah, 7 cents. 7 cents. And then
Dylan's like, what electric bill?
Right. Right. No, but like there's other ways of doing it. And like this is just like me. And this is I hope everybody listens to this because like when you're sitting there, you can actually like in any state that you're at, you can actually get a transformer. So like once your primary or secondary power, right? So if your light grow is secondary, you're coming in straight to the pole to your CT cabinet. And then it goes into a transformer from there. But now if you're primary, you're actually having it run into a transformer outside that you personally purchased, and then it runs into your CT cabinet. Well, then they'll start to change your cost of what it is, either 11, 14, like wherever you're. Let's say if you're at 14 cents a kilowatt coming in from the pole, and then you buy that transformer and it drops down to 3 cents, or it drops down to it takes 3 cents off, so you're at 11 cents. Let's just say. After you do that, you actually have that company owned by a secondary LLC. That's where it's going to get tricky. And you actually charge back to your cultivation, like the 3 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's almost like you're writing off more.
Writing off more
on the. But there's another LLC that actually owns
What's a kilowatt of electricity on Cali?
It's super expensive.
17.
All over
the
the
lowest
place.
I've heard is about 17 cents, and the highest I've heard, I've paid up to 42 cents.
Up in
it depends on where
Sacramento, it's around 10 cents because we got a small municipal power company, and that's not PG&E. Everybody who's listening knows how bad PG&E is. It's awful.
Out here in Nevada, where I'm located, I pay 6 cents delivered,
Damn.
which is really good.
Which is crazy.
But that's the thing is that like they literally like where we're at, we're in a municipality, and that's in like a rural area, and
That's why.
Yeah, and they had to build a substation for us. Like it's crazy. Like we have more power than the township does. In like a couple of grows, there's a grow right down the street from us that built a cogeneration plant in order to do it.
In Sacramento, PG&E was paying people to build cogen plants, and that way they could, as long as they had access to turn it on if there was a power outage, they could use it to support the grid. So people were making that trade.
Do you think where the Michigan market is right now, is it sustainable? For you, obviously.
Yeah, what I think needs to happen is I think that they, this is going to probably piss some people off that watch it, but I mean, this is just me being real. I think that they need to do like a moratorium on licensing because they're handing them out. There's these excess grows out there that it's great, but they're not okay, so they own 20 licenses, right? 30 licenses. But I mean, what do I think they're really doing? I think that they're backdooring packs in and then just fucking the whole market up.
That's a real thing in Michigan for sure.
Because listen, it's different. Michigan's not Nevada. It's not California. They don't have that season that you need to take it for an outdoor to be an outdoor. So like you can't get that little extra burst. This year was actually a lot nicer. I mean, it was just up 70 up until like 4 days ago.
Yeah.
But they don't have that, and a lot of people that come from like out of state, like come from like California or Cali Cali, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, they try to come grow in Michigan, and it's a rude awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah, the humidity, the cold temperatures come fall is no joke.
Yeah, and they don't know how to do it, and then they can't get it executed fast enough, and they don't have reefer trailers, and they're trying to put everything into like make hot dog water out of it or distillate, so so
I know a lot of big farms this year that killed it. That did really well, and I know a lot of big farms that came up severely short on their projected numbers, like severely short. Did like hardly made money short.
Yeah, because they just try to pad the pocket of their investors, and then after they do that, they just flip it back around. So they try to get the investor money out, then everybody else kind of loses a little bit. Those fat cat, numbers.
My cost to produce here in Nevada with tax is just about $750. But in Nevada, they have a fair market value per pound of bulk. And the fair market value is like $2,000.
Okay.
And so they charge you 18% on $2,000, not even for what you really sell it for.
Oh my God.
So
Crazy.
not only do you get
Crazy.
smashed on the 18%, but
half.
you're paying
paying it on
over
a-
than what you really sell it for.
Yeah,
So
so you're paying
you're-
close to
it-
36%.
what
It's
you're-
about $350.
So, but what you're saying though, because like you are a light dep, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're light dep, and you have to put that in consideration as like indoor.
Yeah.
That is actually getting that number.
Exactly.
And I'm sure I know I've seen some of your product, you know what it looks like. So, but still, if there's somebody else that's, lower on the totem pole, they're paying that price.
Yeah, my biggest problem out here in Nevada is I don't do packaged flour. I just sell bulk.
Right.
So what I need to change as a business is packaging my flour. Because as soon as I package the flour, I get between $18 to $22 an eighth.
Right.
So it brings it up to like $2,200 about.
Right.
So that's what we're starting to do now. Then I'm paying fair tax because I think what's going on is what is going on is that I'm just selling bulk for $1,400. Other people are packaging it, and making the money out while I'm getting hit on the tax.
On
they
that
don't have to-
$2,000 tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why not make it worth $2,000 yourself and at least get taxed down?
That's what we're doing now.
I know I've white labeled for a couple of companies myself,
Yeah.
where they've done that, and I've, bulked out, 10 to 50 pounds to them. And then they put it under their own, and then they're like, oh, don't worry, we got you. And then all of a sudden I look at their retail price. I'm like, what? So, there's a difference. It's a play out there.
Yeah.
I think the black market in Michigan is definitely still sustainable. I mean, I know for me personally, I mean, and a lot of guys I know, cost per pound, in the black market, about $250 to $300 a pound if you're automated
To produce.
to produce. Yeah, super cheap.
No tax.
Like I have 60 to 80 light spots that we check in once or twice a week. It's not as demanding as something like Chris is at, right? I think it's sustainable, but I think people have to watch how much they're producing. I mean, I know a lot of guys that went hardcore, like hardcore for a lot of years, and I just don't think that's not sustainable. I think if you start overproducing, and that's kind of what I'm seeing, the people that are overproducing are the people that are calling me or, hey, can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? And it's like, stop producing so much. You know what I mean? You don't need that much right now.
New York does.
New York does. Yeah, New York eats it up.
But I mean, that's the thing is that, like, coming on for us, we just look at it a little bit different. What's now going into rosin? What's, instead of just being a cultivation side, what's going into rosin? If there is a good like hydrocarbon that actually does very well, we'll do that, and then the rest is into usable flour. So you just have to figure out where you're at. But like the thing that kills on the like state side, like the metric side, is the cost of testing, the cost of this. So if you're running like 10 varietals a room, you start to add up, and every time that's a batch over 50 pounds too, then they take like a quarter pound of weed after every 50 pounds. And then they start, they're just always numbers that are coming out of that. And, like something hits the floor, like in the trap, if like, sorry guys, something hit the floor, I'd be like, well, all right, boop, but like, in the legal, it's not like that. Like, it's like, oh, I've thrown away more weed than I've ever wanted to. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it sucks.
Yeah, but you
Chris-
gotta do it.
Chris Durand. So what? This is
I'm
why
enjoying this podcast
yeah.
so far. Oh yeah,
You learning a lot?
the last two, I get to answer more questions. This one I get to sit back and watch these guys grow. Yeah, I got more questions for you for sure myself. But yeah, let's do this.
Why are we here? Fade. So we've been working on it. When did we start working on Fade?
9 months, I think, was when we first started giving out some of the goodies for testing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
R&Ding it for probably 8 months, 9 months, something like that.
Yeah. So it had been in discussion. I don't know who the idea started with, but it had been a discussion for a while on how we effectively moved to get this out.
I think it really started on that podcast that we did a long time ago, and you started talking about
the nitrogen discussion and just less and less and less.
Yep.
And then people started doing crazy stuff, changing ratios, hurting plants. And then we had to stop some of that, I think, is where this kind of came from. So we had to come up with a viable option to not get bud rot, let plants finish naturally, and get all the nitrogen out, really. I mean, that's where we're at.
Flushing is such a controversial conversation with so many growers. Some are saying flush, some are saying not. What do you think it is about flushing that some growers do? Like what?
I think the concept of a flush is still solid, right? You're kind of doing a couple things here. You're trying to reduce certain nutrients, and you're trying to stress out a plant, get some genetic expression, right? We're all trying to stress plants. We talked about this. And but what kind of stress are you really trying to give the plant? There's certain stresses that the plant can manage, and it's going to make it express, and you're going to start to get this finish. And this is where fade actually came from. Was people were doing like 2-week flushes, 3-week flushes, and starting to get crazy. Well, it's like a recipe for bud rot, right? Calcium, losing a lot of these micros, and we're all growing in cocoa and rock wool at this point. Nobody's growing big old pots once a day watering or anything. And then you get these cool looking giant nugs, and it's always bud rot. It's botrytis everywhere. And it's tip burn. It's the same thing. Happens in all kinds of crops. This is super common. You guys grow in humid environment. Tip burn, bud rot, whatever it is, it's more common in humid environments. You get less transpiration. You're talking about killing it with managing the environment. That's what I bet a lot of the new growers are having trouble with, all that humidity, and they just have damp rooms. And then, the list of problems just goes on and on and on, right, from there. And it's like, that's an issue. So we're trying to find a way to keep the plants, well fed with calcium, drop as much nitrogen out of them, and give the plant everything it's need that's non-mobile within the plant, and then let it translocate this nitrogen. And what we're finding, you guys did a lot of preliminary testing on this. That's why we're all sitting in this podcast together. Preliminary testing was great. You guys are getting good results. We weren't seeing any problems. Modified the formulations a little bit. I think you had some numbers that you got over to Henry from all of your testing.
Yep.
We take all that and then we distill it into a nice experiment at Jungle Boys where we validate you guys because we love you. But we have to trust but verify.
Yeah.
So we take all this information. We go, okay, well, is it just Athena love, or is this really working the way we designed it? So we bring it in, and we run an experiment at Jungle Boys, and we can risk running it in a way that, if one of the two trials, if we're doing side by sides, doesn't work, and we have some crop loss, well, that's okay because we're paying for it on another end. That's the cost of doing business and doing research. So you guys can't always run the same exact side by side. But we can.
But those onion layers of validation that we have, that's what I love. We have those layers, right? The layers of validation within the company that, that's where it should end.
Yeah.
So the Jungle Boys okay, now let's validate it for real. Let's do big rooms side by side. And
yeah, that's the only way to do it. And we do it actually all intra-room. It's all shared room. So we actually randomize within the same room so the climate's as uniform as possible. We try to get rid of anything. The only difference is one product. Once we get to the very end, we distill it down to one variable only, and that is it.
Yep.
So, and I don't think you can get a better result than that. So, anecdotal's great. We love it. Trust me, that's what keeps us going. But we have to go in there and verify this stuff because there's a lot of crazy talk out there all the time too. So you guys are on Instagram.
Right.
With flushing, is calcium the main cause of botrytis and bud rot? That, in your opinion?
Yeah, so yes, that's the main cause for sure, is if you get calcium deficiency, and it doesn't happen overnight, right? If you're in cocoa, it takes a little bit of time, right? Because there's cation exchange sites, so you have a little bit of time and a buffer. And we expect that. When people used to grow bigger pots, there's more calcium stored in that root zone. As you shrink the pot, because a lot of people are finding out smaller pots get, better results for some of these grows. You're a big fan. We've talked about this a ton,
Yeah.
A little bit smaller pot, stop going so big. Same concept is in hand. So get a smaller pot, there's less stored cations in there. So if you're going rock wool, you should not flush. You should never go for a zero flush, maybe the last day. because the plant has enough left in its vascular system. But otherwise, no calcium, you start getting weaker and weaker cell walls. As soon as you have one cell wall that collapsed, now you have a ruptured cell, it's damage. And there's always botrytis spores floating around, right? Butterrout's just an inch away. So, and then at that point, it's just, again, it looks great on the outside, but it's because the plant is actually dying at that point.
Yeah, the immune system of the plants.
Well, you couldn't have it. I mean, the inside of the cell is now coming out. You know, you have the whole thing's falling
You're
apart.
sick. The plant's sick.
Yeah, the plant's sick.
And it's defenseless.
Yeah,
against
for
what's
sure.
in
And
here.
once botrytis is in, then it destroys from the inside out. It can destroy the cells next to it. And calcium is the main one. There are other immobile microelements too that add to that equation.
But calcium's
one for the cell walls. Yeah, the other ones, like iron and manganese, they can potentially get shuttled around, stored in the cell vacuoles, and get moved around. You get a little bit more buffer there. It's not huge, but a little bit. They're not really mobile. So calcium's the biggie, and that's the one that we were really pumping first. But we found if you make sure you have everything in there, it actually gets you even better results. There is that next step. It's not just that simple. And then, we're just looking for expression in these plants. And if they start starving of nitrogen, it's an indication. We've seen it. People want to go that direction. We just wanted them to do it healthy, not ruin their crop.
Max, what's your experience with flushing in the past and what you're doing now?
I mean, I've flushed for, straight RO. I mean, I think we've all kind of done this. I've done 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week, 0. Since I've been using Fade, I actually get like even distribution of fading in my plants compared to kind of like you're saying, like tip burn on those leaves that are really close to the buds, So instead of just running super low EC or straight water through, I'm seeing just a different expression using it, which, totally makes sense from the standpoint of the chemicals, so.
Yeah. You got to get that nitrogen out of there. Let the plants translocate, from fan leaves, other green tissue. That translocation's just, the plant's noticing, it's acting accordingly.
So I just was at my spot in Nevada, or just 2 hours from here, about 3 hours ago. And every single grower in the facility is saying the dry rooms have never smelled as loud, the packs have never smelled as loud when using Fade. Why is that? Why is that happening?
Stress. The plant's finishing its life. We have more, available cannabinoids, more terpenes. Like, we've tested it, we verified it, we validated it in the side-by-side. That's the whole same thing. Start cutting out nitrogen, keep the potassium high, you start getting the genetic expression. I mean, I don't want to stop and act like if you can just reduce nitrogen that your trash 1994 strain is going to be like fire. You need good genetics, but if you want them to express, you got to pull the nitrogen out, and we keep seeing that. Everybody's seen it now, and now we finally got the test and we have the data, right? Yeah. That's what we were all waiting for, was to get like hard data, and it's just genetic expression. And if you want to get more expression, then you got to activate it.
What is it about the nitrogen that takes away from the natural flavor of the plant?
I don't know if it takes away so much as it delays senescence, right? And this isn't just in cannabis, this is in a lot of other crops. If you provide late nitrogen for a fruiting or a flowering crop, it's gonna decrease basically and delay flowering and plant senescence. And so if the plant, it just keeps lingering around, it doesn't go fully into a regenerative state, it's gonna stay vegetative to some level. It's not just dedicating its resources, whereas now if it's getting resource restriction, it's being encouraged, It knows that with no nitrogen, life will come to an end anyway. And so now genetics are gonna take over and say, all right, let's get to the end.
So it's just extra stress.
Yeah, but a good kind of stress.
Yep.
If we were all just growing for just leaf biomass, by all means, just run nitrogen all day long. It's totally fine, And part of the testing, and we talked about this, is really the timing of when you want to run the Fade. Plants still need nitrogen to survive. Where they're getting that nitrogen is important. If there's too little nitrogen for too long, you're still going to probably have some total yield decreases. So we don't want you running this like the whole time. You have to still give your plants nitrogen until they get to the end of their life. And then you cut it off into Fade and keep them with everything else.
What is Fade?
Calcium and micronutrients, really. It was designed to be for ProLine initially as a core replacement. That's what we were hearing from everybody running ProLine, was they kept changing ratios to a point where things were getting out of hand. And so we said, we've got to do something better, because this is getting, I hear you, but we can't have you basically butchering your crop in the process of getting better weed. So this is where we came up with this was for that, and to replace core as a direct swap at 2 pounds per gallon. We tried to make it as simple and easy as possible. And then it's also got the complete micronutrient package, just like core, so you're not losing out on that. So, and that's where we started, was with the Pro line.
Yeah.
Well, there's also a big difference too, like just with the micronutrients with that compared to just running the powdered calcium chloride. There's a huge difference. I've seen it in testing. Like you can't just like it's not just like taking 1-to-1, right?
No.
Like what else do you guys have inside of that? And like we started getting different like hash increases. Like of your final hash, you're like 40 to 70 U, or you're 40 to 120 U. And that's what I even asked Brandon. I was like, hey, if you ran hash, have you checked out your yield set? Because there is, if you're looking at like, I think our last one was an increase of 1.3%.
From what?
So from it was like 4.2 to 5.5 finish. So when you start actually looking at that,
how much money is that?
A lot.
Yeah.
When you're washing 100,000,
he complains when he goes down like 0.2 because he tells me all the money he's losing. So 1.2 is a lot of money.
when you're washing, we do test
increase.
wash. When we do the test wash, it's like 10,000 grams, and then it's normally like a wash is like a minimum of us sending out like anywhere from 20 to 120,000 wet grams. So it makes a big number, especially if what is right now in Nevada? What is the price of like wholesale price of hash? Is there a big rosin market here?
I don't do any hash, so I don't know.
No
See,
hash.
but that's what I'm saying.
What is it in the
Like,
legal game? What are you getting per gram?
30 or up.
30 or up?
$30 a gram or more.
Yeah, that's what it is right now. It's like 30, 35 black market.
So,
What
that's
I'm getting.
right. But like if you change 1%, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in a year.
It's huge.
I mean, like
going from 3% to 4%, it's a game changer. 5% is
like everybody breaks down. So like
So dinner's on you tonight.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Exactly, that 1%. But they have
What inflation?
but they have it where you can break down these, and like how it goes down is they're your wet pound, like 5 wet pounds is technically considered 1 dry pound. For like when you're talking with rosin producers, or you've been running rosin a long time too.
10 years, something like that.
Exactly. So those differences when you get even a 0.5% difference. It's big numbers.
Yeah. There's a huge market for it in Michigan.
Yeah, there's a huge market, and then then now all these people that are doing this, like donuts are like a big thing here right now.
Big thing right now.
So I see it more of like a niche, and I see it more of like if I wanted to like have some donuts, like I don't think personally myself it's like for where the market's at, I don't think people are really gonna just every consumer, because a lot of people are stuck in these like $50 ounces, $60 ounces, $75 ounces. Do you want a $1 or do you want an $80 joint that you're gonna smoke? Or do you want an $80 and smoke a whole ounce of it, right?
I want the $80 joint.
I do.
Right.
We do, right?
Different
That's
rooms, different
why I
rooms. There's a
said
market
it's niche,
for it.
though, right?
It is.
There's a market for everything.
Right.
It is.
And but it's still a big market. So people, what they're doing is they're taking their 40 and 70 U, selling those, and then as rosin, and then selling it like that. And then after they do that, they take anything up to like 120. They're either putting it in carts or they're putting it into donuts. Or now what people are doing is they're actually taking distillate and mixing it with rosin and calling it full spectrum rosin infused pens.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's marketing.
Was that flower that you brought and showed us? Was that grown? Was that off a recent batch with Faye?
Yeah.
Fire.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, fire.
So you were with us from the beginning, Chris, on this stuff.
Yeah.
And you tested calcium chloride.
Calcium chloride, yeah.
Yep. You did. Obviously, you ran Proline. Then we gave you some calcium chloride. Did that. Then we ran some Fade, and you did that. What was the major differences between calcium chloride and Fade?
The micronutrients, the addition of that, and also when your yields go up, quite a percentage, and then noticing, because the calcium chloride, the difference is that that stuff is horrible to work with, first off.
It's hard, man.
Yeah.
I got a story.
I mean, I hope you know, we had a lot of conversation about this, about sending it out to you guys, and like, people are gonna start
I'm talking powdered.
I know.
No,
that's
I know.
what I'm talking about. That was not a decision that was taken lightly.
Why do you think fade's a liquid?
Right. There's a reason why it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I was concerned, and I think you were the one who got the instruction, because Henry was, I think, conveying a
me
lot of
too.
this, was like, you know, with the powder, you're gonna melt your tanks if you're not paying attention. It gets uncomfortably
Put a
hot.
hole through a
scary.
5-gallon bucket.
It'll
was
melt out
scary.
the side, and then it blows out, and then you're in trouble. So
No, I won't say that it happened, but it did.
All right.
So
I guess those instructions didn't make it through so well.
they totally didn't
send me
even come with it.
instructions.
It wasn't like that. So, but
I called him. I was like, "Is it supposed to be this hot, dude?" I made it like 2 pounds a gallon,
It's hot.
and
It's hot.
my 5-gallon bucket was like flimsy, dude.
Oh yeah.
Right. But
And then wet
the
noodle.
nicest thing is, you know, like I never talk about like any other nutrient companies, and I never will on the side of it. But this is like something that can be used with every nutrient line, like that. That's the difference with this product, and it's not just specific to, you know, like an Athena product. It's something that can be used with every single company that's out there. I personally think, because there's a lot of lack. This is the first product, in my personal opinion, that is like an actual finisher. Because everything runs crazy hard on nitrogen, and when you're looking in these, you know, everything that they're doing and all the products that everybody's running in every line and other lines too. So I think this is the changer.
It's hard, you know, there's positives and negatives to that. The negatives are that we haven't tested it, you know, and it's like,
We haven't even tested with blended yet.
you guys are
100%.
testing.
We're testing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's
that
hard to.
We won't come out and say use fade with blended, because we don't have enough data to back it up. We look at it as these growers' livelihood depends on what information we give them. So if we just go out and say, hey, use it with blended, it'll work great because of what we see on numbers and
Right.
not in the cultivation, we're putting people's businesses and lives in our hands, and that information could hurt them, right?
I agree,
sure.
but I'm gonna look in this camera. It works fucking great with ProLine. So you know, I know because I run ProLine, and it makes a difference. And the difference is I can't speak on blended, so I can't. But you know, I have somebody that runs a competitive nutrient, right, that we're homies with, and I gave it to him to run. I didn't tell him what it was, and he's smashing with it. He knows like the makeup of it. He doesn't really know. Like I explained to him what I wasn't like, here, put this in your plants. You know, I explained to him what it was, but I didn't tell him who it was from or what it, you know.
The
what it-
R&D had the R&D on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like, and he's like blown away, right? And he was able to adjust it to his nutrient line that he's running.
The reason why we're sticklers on that is because we have 3 tech team guys. Well, we got 14 facility advisors nationwide, and then we have 3 guys that are on the tech team that answer DMs, emails, phone calls, and when they're dealing with hundreds of growers a day, whether it be, you know, whatever communication chain, and these growers are like, well, I'm using ProLine, but I'm adding CalMag and PK and this and that, but I'm having lockout and my shit's dying. I don't know why. And it's, well, how do I help you? Like,
Right.
how can I help
Dylan,
you?
should I give your phone number out? No, I'm just saying.
No, I get enough of those. So like, whenever somebody gets a hold of me that's running Athena, whether it's ProLine or blended, and the first thing I always ask them is, are you only using what we suggest? Because if they're not, my flow chart for diagnosis goes like fucking over. It's like, okay, now we got to take that in consideration. What's your, and then right away I'm usually saying, especially if they're using like a monosilicic acid, I'm like, where's your pH in your root zone? Because I know it's fucked up, right? So it's like, it's a whole different diagnosis.
Well, if
there's
you're
so many-
using rock wool, it's definitely fucked up. If you're using cocoa, cocoa's a lot more forgiving than rock wool.
There's, like I said when we first started talking in the beginning, was there's so many different variables that people aren't like looking in the just the sensors and the data that you can get back. It's crazy, right? So like I went into a facility and they're having a bunch of issues with their dry backs and trying to figure this out. And like I straight up, I'm just like, pick the pot up. I'm like, it's fucking light, you know, water more, you know? And then they're like, huh? Then I'll squeeze the sides of it and pull out and I'm like, yeah, water more. Like you're chasing this dry back. And I was like, where are your sensors? So they have like 40 lights in this room, okay? And I'm a DE guy, so I run DEs. And like I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it. His sensors are right up in the front, okay? So you have like one light here, one light here, one light here, you know, that you're actually getting, and then they're spaced out even farther. But like the plants that are having the problems and reading the wrong are in the middle of your fucking room. So it's just like you're not getting the data because you're not looking at the plants. Everybody's just thinking, oh, the sensor's going to tell me. This is what's going to tell me. It's like, no, you got to go there, start to feed it, and then if it starts to look, I mean, you have 3 days to like really to see if there's something that's actually happening.
Validate those sensors hardcore.
Yeah, and unless like you're going to sit there and run something, I pick that up and I'm like, oh, yep, here, you need to, you know, water it more. They're like, do I have DEC? I'm like, no, fucking water it more. Like, what's going on? Like, keep it where it's at and just run it. Like, you guys need to start looking at this. And then they're like, well, the sensor says this.
I've gotten to the point using these sensors where I could look at my sensors and be like, this room's fucking crushing. You know, temperature's here, humidity's here, moisture's here. I have a lot of experience using them for the last few years now,
but
kind of thing.
But you can validate now.
Right, you probably validated the sensors when you got them.
For sure.
You were the guy, I bet, who said run the cycle, and you stared at it and felt that pot.
Oh, I got this tiny little room.
And you looked at the data, and you did this for 20 minutes, and you're like, okay, this is what the sensor means.
Right. When they're done right, though, they crush. And you still obviously got to be there. I walk in my room 5-6 times a day. You know, I just open the door to look at the plants and see how they're looking. But you know, I can, you know, when I'm gone here for 7 days, I can pull my app open and be like, yep, they're in the zone. You know, EC's swinging here, moisture's here. I'm at this point in the plant's life, you know. So.
I agree. I mean, that, like I said, the sensors are not. I think it's more that people just trust everything so much without validating the sensors. Like
Totally.
Sitting there and actually running and, oh, this new varietal that I got from here that it's supposed to be running like this.
You got to know, like, this strain likes this EC bouncing between this, or, you know, this dryback too. So everything's a little bit different. You know, if I run 2 strains on one zone, and you know, this one's bouncing here, that one's bouncing there. You know, most of the time they look different because one likes it better than the other. So there's a lot to it, but they are nice. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Max, you're running blended line and you're using fade.
I am, yeah. So I've got almost 2 full runs of it right now. I'm about to harvest here in about 10 days. But just the difference in like the smell in the room, the expression of the plant. You know, like you said, like I personally do huge drybacks towards the end too, so as much stress as I can give them. But since I've used fade, dude, like my leaves are like that. You get that good golden color towards the end that you just don't get like the dying decay like you do just flushing with straight nothing, or, you know, really low core, you know, whatever. But it's been a big difference, dude, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't have any side-by-sides. You know, I've got one room with one zone, one tank. I don't have a side-by-side of running fade versus not, which, you know, that's the true side-by-side. But from what I'm seeing right now, like, yeah, it totally makes sense from, you know, a mineral standpoint too, so.
Well, we appreciate you testing for us because while Brandon just said, you know, we have to give you the right info because it's also your livelihood and your business, you're willing to risk it on some trust for us, so we do appreciate that. You know, I can't say enough from the rest of our R&D team, you know, to shout out to you guys to, you know, put a little bit of your livelihoods on the line knowing that.
I love it.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a risk, right? It's there.
shit, I'm running 100 lights on it without even a blink of an eye.
I know.
You know?
I know.
Well, I'm running 300 lights on. Well, 200.
Yeah, we almost melted your tanks, and here you go. You're like, whatever.
Right. No, well, but
5-gallon buckets.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, it's like if you don't try it, you're never gonna know where you could be at. And this is like, I mean, before when I was running, I was pulling core off, like, and I was that guy that was like pulling core off at that point in time.
It made sense.
Yeah.
You thought it made sense.
Yeah, well, it does to some level, right?
yeah.
And
But
then
that's when I was adding the calcium chloride powdered instead before that, right? And then that's what ends up happening is you're doing that.
Yeah.
And then there's
Too much
also a lot of
guesswork.
things that, like what we were talking about, what you brought up, the defoliation. A lot of people do defoliations at a certain point. And you're taking a ton of nitrogen out from that. And then you start running the fade. Like I do a heavy defoliation, and now this one we're not doing a heavy defoliation, right towards that. And so I'm going to try to do a heavy defoliation like right at the end, like right there at the end. So that way I still have the nitrogen pulling back on the nitrogen, and then do like a quick defoliation, heavy defoliation 2 days before crop.
Yeah.
So Chris,
Ease
you
of
saw
work.
yield increases in hash, right? And then where were your testing numbers?
Up. THC, and it's not like some bullshit testing numbers. Anybody that knows me, I don't test and try to dry it down to like 7%. And so people know in this like podcast, like what a lot of people are doing is they're drying their shit down so they can get those test results. Like I gave, Henry the test results that I had and Taylor and everybody of like, hey, this is the actual moisture content. And it's like, at 11%, 11.5% moisture content and hitting like 29% like THC, not total THC.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're starting at that, and I know it's a THC driven market, but it's still it's the number one thing. It's not dried down. Like those results were back, and then I had a side by side of two different varietals, two different tests, and you could see the cannabinoids, the terps, everything. I mean, it was all in all like 30% higher. So you can say 3%, 4%, 5%, but it's 30% like total if you want to talk on point.
Let's start from the beginning. Athena Pro line, no calcium chloride. Same genetic, same room, same app. What were your THC number? Total THC.
Like THC, let's say, like this is just, I know that like Taylor has the data, so 100% she does, but I'm just going to use this as an idea of just running like the pro line, like the first time that we ran it, 3.0 all the way through, right? 3.0 all the way through, 1 day flush. I'm one of those guys that don't believe in the heavy flush, the 7, 14 days. Like I'm more of like, I don't even really believe in the hard taper either. Personally, myself, I like to have it where I'm running 3.0, then a little bit like start to gradual down a little bit, and then keep it. Because I can flush my whole make the median down to like nothing. In one flush, just run a bunch through it. Now, so let's get back to where we were talking with THC content. Running straight through is like, let's say a varietal at like 23, 24% THC, just like 3.0 all the way through. And then pulling off core at that point in time at like day like 52. Going from there, it was an added like 2% increase. So then it'd be like, 27, 28. And then now going from that and using the Fade R&D with the micronutrients.
Yeah, the full one, the jug.
The full one, is like 30 plus now. All right. Yeah, and that's like, but you have to look at it. It's in the differences is the tests that were actually sent over. The moisture content, it's funny, is like the ones that are like higher or that are lower are at like 10.5% moisture content in it. And the water activity's like lower. And then the ones that are like the higher THC is higher moisture content and a higher water activity.
That's weird.
So it's like, that's why I'm just like,
shit. Yeah.
But that's that when we were talking, I look at everything as we did not change anything. So we did not change any variables. We kept all our controls the same, and we used that was the variable.
Yeah.
So
it's a sequential trial, and that's as close as we can get from most of our external testers.
Right.
I think it'd be real hard to ask to be like, all right, hey, just give us 2 benches in your room and let's just let us have it.
You know, full underlight rooms.
Yeah, nobody's doing that.
You know,
but-
I've seen it.
I'll give you fucking 2 benches. I just
you
gave
will
you 10.
now. You will
You
now.
know?
I don't know if you would have before we started this.
No,
but
I think that the trust on the side of like what you guys have here's, you know, from switching over with running over with other nutrient companies and other lines, and like, you know, I know you guys are facility advisors. You guys all work together. Like I'm, you know, not a facility advisor. I'm a cultivator. You guys support me. I love supporting your product. I don't get paid by you guys. There's nothing on that, right? Like the difference is that when I run nutrients where there's no fucking biofilm in anything, there's like, it's super sterile in the environment that I have to have for passing testing at, you know, the colony forming units and for total yeast and mold that we have and how stringent it is and, you know, all the things. It's an amazing product.
Helps
And
your
so,
business.
yeah, and it helps my business. So it feeds my family. Like, listen, I'm not doing this for like myself for clout or anything. I have 2 kids. My partners have kids. You know, we're doing this like so that if, you know, like I always tell people, if my sons want like to be a social worker or like something like a ballerina or like anything, it doesn't matter, and they can't afford to have what they are able to do. I want to be able to help do that. And you guys are the ones that are helping do that for my family and other families around too.
Thanks, appreciate that.
But like now this is real talk. This is like, it's a game changer. And I know you guys, I noticed like, I've been watching how you guys talk about it, and you don't want to put out anything crazy, but like I'm telling everybody it's fucking real. So it is, it is. They'll see. I know you guys won't put anything out until it's 100% at the point where you guys are at, but it's real. It's if it wasn't, we wouldn't even be sitting at this conversation. You guys wouldn't be running with Ivan in any of his rooms. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So we have like, other than Chris, we had like a lot of other homies, you know, like you know, that within the family that ran at smaller scale, like some other cultivators from Michigan, smaller scale, guys that you know, and it was funny because like my joke with Henry is that we kind of made him like Pablo Escobar. We like seriously, no, listen.
Oh,
He was responsible. Brandon says, send it to this guy, send it to my homie over here. Henry starts lacing up all these people, right? Well, you know, it comes down to it's like, okay, we gave you your sample, you run it. Well, these guys are hooked, like crack.
Yeah.
I mean, we're sharing messages where guys are like, bro, I need where's my R&D
fix,
product?
yeah.
Where's this stuff at? Like, you can't give it to me, and then because the people are the same results that you're seeing. A lot of my other friends are seeing. You know, I'm seeing the same results.
And it takes a little bit of dialing in to get to that point because that's not like just the first run. That was a couple runs, right?
Yep.
So I've ran it for a couple runs, but I think Henry's more. Have you guys ever seen the movie Usual Suspects? So Kaiser Sose, he's Kaiser Sose. So
He's gonna love that.
Yeah,
I called him
exactly.
Dr. Evil the other day. He's gonna be revealing a new look at the show.
yeah,
I just love the even senescence that I'm seeing. That's like the biggest thing that I'm seeing in my room.
You haven't heard one person say, I want more. And I'm getting hit up nonstop. You know, I need more. I'm like,
I know.
Henry, send.
It's kind of work with the manufacturing. You guys all know this, right? Like very hands-on with that part of this. And it's been interesting because Henry is like a drug dealer right now. He's for sure. He's like needing to get his fix all the time. And it's like, I'm busy. We've got other things in the schedule, man. And he's like, I know, we need it now. And like he'll show up at the door basically to get his fix. And I'm like, it was just, you know, it's telling when, you know, we're giving out an R&D product, right? It's beyond pre-release at that point. It was an R&D product, still an R&D product officially. But the demand was already there, and that was a little bit interesting, a little bit telling.
I think it was the missing link of any nutrient line.
Yeah, it was.
I think it is, and I think that like I come from a background, you know this. I'm a tweaker. Like I know you've ran everything underneath the sun and combinations of everything, and like we're always trying to protect this craft, always. And I know that we're huge on that here, right? Like we're always trying to get better, continuous improvement. What can we do better? What can we do? And this is a huge piece to that. Huge piece to it. Huge piece.
That's the best part about working with this company, man, is the R&D that we do on the backside, and the, you know, we're coming out with Fade, but like constantly trying different things. And
It's not just something that we just were like, oh, we're gonna make it, and we're just gonna throw it out
So
there.
you guys gonna drop a new bombshell or something else that you guys
We'll
are
see.
possibly coming out with? Is there something else?
Let me shift around here.
I see Brandon's eyes light up real quick.
My question that I was gonna ask him was, I want to know the products that I don't know about.
I was leading into it, you know. But we'll leave that for another time.
You know, there's other things that we, as opposed to confirm, test, and find out if they work and put out, there's a lot of things that just get tested to prove that they don't work. And that stuff we just bury.
90% of what we test,
We just test and
throw in
bury.
the trash.
Yeah, we just test and bury, test and bury, test and bury.
90%.
I mean, there's no point in going out and saying we tested and
The
buried
purple
it.
spray.
That's
a cut. No. Yeah, but you know, we do test and bury because
We had to try
because
it.
there's a lot of stuff out
I
there.
get it. That's what we do, though, right?
Well,
we
and this-
try. We
Yeah.
have to validate whether it's real or fancy.
And a lot of this comes down, you know, we
Fun.
obviously partner with Jungle Boys heavily there. Everybody's sending them the coolest shit under the sun, right? They come up with some harebrained ass ideas, and I'll get a call from Roach, and he'll be like, Chris, tell me about this. That's not how Roach sounds at all. And he'll be like, I need you to explain this to me. He was like, somebody's sending this DM over here, and so we walk through it and we set up something to trial it, and you know, he's willing to jeopardize his plants, and oftentimes it is jeopardizing on those ones, and it's like, all right, I'll send it to you, but this doesn't put my name on this anywhere. I'm like, this is someone else's bad idea, you know, but we'll test it because you never know. What if it works?
We test everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we run R&Ds just to see how it does and for the fun of it too, you know.
Yeah.
Like obviously we run it because we think it's going to do better or
Yeah.
has a chance, you know. But
Or somebody told you it would.
yeah, true.
You know how much
But-
of that this industry's built on that.
I know.
Try this.
Oh, I know.
I've been
I know.
duped a million times.
Oh, me too.
All right, buy 2 supplements, get 1 free.
Dude, we've got storage units full of shit that just, you know, tried and can't get rid of it. So
Interesting thing with fade that I've seen at my spot is that you look at some cultivars and they'll yellow out, but others get dark purple black.
Yeah.
Have you seen that too?
Yeah, and I've noticed like it's so what here's something crazy like you can a lot of people do it when they start to like add like colder water and they start to like do certain things. Like I'm not changing anything different, but like there's a couple varietals that I have that like I've never seen them like change. Like I have some with like crazy black leaves, and then all of a sudden now they're starting to like yellow out from the like inside out, but just like running streaks down the line. I'm like, fucking A, you know, like it's crazy. It's like art.
The
when you go in
expressions
there.
I'm seeing are 100% different.
Yeah.
So like all my manipulations before at the end of flower, running Proline for years were based on environment. Taking temps down really cold, taking my humidity down to get that color exchange that I wanted, to get a lot of that's what I've relied on for the expression, right? I'm getting that, like these rooms I'm taking down, I'm not even dropping my temps that low. I'm running like 73, 74 degrees. I'm not even going as low. I used to get into like mid 60s, low 60s to really try to get that black, that purple. I don't even have to do that. I got rooms that are like day 50 just already just
purpling out.
purpling and falling over at 76 degrees.
Yeah, I was a little worried because I did take a room down a little bit, and I thought I was going to turn some weed black for a second because how dark it was going.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, did I just fuck this up?
Yeah.
You know, like it's a lot of lights.
Yeah,
But,
the OG
worked out.
How'd it come
It
out?
worked out fucking phenomenal. So
Scary.
yeah, that's what I thought, and it was like, no, it's just like that's where the expression took it to.
It brings out their true genetic
Yeah,
expression.
that's what I think the difference is in this product, that it actually brings out what
It's
the
supposed to
full
be.
talent
so
of it.
what EC are you running right now with Fade?
Real.
3? Just all the way to the end? What about
So
you?
that's what I'm experimenting. I've done the taper.
Yeah.
So I've done the taper, and now I'm doing the 3.0 all the way through. And the 3.0 all the way through is fucking banging. Like, and test results don't lie. I haven't smoked it yet. It's just actually getting cut right now at the facility at that 3.0. So
Yeah.
thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That's what we validated at. We did 3.0 the whole run through.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first
That-
run I
that
did
was our
3.0,
validation.
second run I tapered. This one's 3.0 all the way through with now the environmentals like how I normally run them because I didn't want to run anything too cold. Colder water at the end, like a couple different, you know, like
Yeah.
that I normally had run through. Now I'm just trying to throw everything at it. And it's, I mean, colas are like, because I even took it where I started like looking at the colas and like cutting them to see if there was like any botrytis or anything. Because I'm like, this thing has to be fucking loaded. I mean, like this, right?
Yeah.
Like outdoor colas.
Yeah.
Indoor.
Typical botrytis bud.
Yeah. And then I'm cutting it open. I'm like, nothing. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to go scavenge this room and like cut up everything.
Tear off all the good ones.
But like normally you would sit there and you'd something that you would think would have it, but it doesn't. I think that's with pulling the nitrogen.
I just took down my first decent-sized LED room for the first time, I think, ever. LEDs, I struggle more with botrytis than anything. Ds, has never been as big of a case for me, but LEDs just present a different, it's a different ball game. More biomass, way more biomass under LEDs. And when I say I would get botrytis, I'm talking out of a 20 light room, I would end up with maybe like a quarter ounce. We're not talking like pounds.
Right, but I mean, it's something that you're normally not used to seeing. But the swell that you get of those under LEDs,
three rounds in a row. No, 3 rounds in a row using fade, and not either A, just going to water, or B, pushing the nitrogen in the core way too much and getting giant buds at the end of flower, and hitting that senescence right and running it straight. At first time in under LEDs, I haven't got rot, like over and over, 3 times in a row in the same room. So it could have just be luck, maybe, but at the third time, I'm like, all right, like there's I mean, and to your point, the magnesium, the iron, and the calcium, and keeping those ratios in check all the way, I think it's super important.
Yeah.
Super important.
But the other thing that I'm saying is like normally I would do like a heavy defoliation. I think that right now I think I'm gonna have a better on yield percentage right now with not doing a heavy defoliation than doing a heavy defoliation, so I can keep that nitrogen in that plant while I pull the nitrogen off.
Yeah, pull it out of the root zone instead. Let the plant do its translocation. I think that translocation is important for what you're seeing. Not just the lack of nitrogen, because you can get rid of it, by defoliating, right? And that's part of what you're trying to do. But actually forcing the plant to go, I have none in the root zone. I have to change my behavior, translocate nitrogen to finish the plant. I think that sequence of events is part of what we're attributing to the results. Yeah. And without doing more scientific experiment and genetic work, I don't think we can prove that portion, but it seems to be true across the board for everybody who's trialing it.
Right, but like, how Brandon was saying, like, they get calls and calls and calls. Like the number one thing, it's like hard to tell somebody because now you put out an amazing product, right? So you put out the amazing product and then you have those guys that are doing their a defol either day 45, day 52, day 54, in indoor. So they pull all the, large fan leaves during the whole entire thing, but then they're pulling out all that nitrogen that they actually still need because they're pulling the nitrogen off.
Yeah, from the plant.
So it's almost, it's very hard, I can see on your guys' side of being like, hey, this is when because you're giving, it's funny when I talk to people and then they're like, oh, this is a feeding chart I have. And I'm like, so you're just following a feeding chart on any nutrient, not just like Athena, like you name it. And I was like, but you don't know what's wrong. You think you have this, so you're throwing more stuff at it. Like this is your deficiency. And it's like, fucking feed more. No, that's not. But
that's usually what it is.
I mean, well, I'm running a 1.5. I don't know what the problem is.
Right. But the whole thing is that like I can see where you guys are at on that because like, and that was with talking with you downstairs when we're having a bite to eat and we were saying like, hey, like now instead to keep all the actual nitrogen from the plant without defoliating, because we do it, so we'll do the heavy defoliation. So that way, when it comes to like actual harvest day, it's coming through. It already has its swell. It can just be cut, quartered, hung.
Yeah.
So it's easier for us. Now that's where laziness starts to come in because it's easier for us. So I'd rather have it where this time we're running it all the way through, and then we'll have it where we'll either defoliate and the harvest days are going to be horrible. Sorry, guys, for everybody coming up soon, or it's going to be, maybe a day before and then pull it.
And it would be fine at that point, right? I mean, there's not much happening at that. And when we did final validations of this, we changed nothing from the rest of the practice. Everything else was identical between the control and the fade plants. All the cultural practices in the room were identical. So the defoliation was occurring at the same time. Everything was identical except for fade. So we simplified it to follow feed chart EC3 all the way through because we want to make it simple for not just you guys in here, expert growers who love their plants and live in there every single day, but everybody else who's maybe not as savvy, so that they can get in there, find a good starting spot, and then, hone in those last 3 days. When are you going to defoliate now? Are you going to defoliate now?
That's the number one thing. I think that's the thing that's going to resonate most is like, you don't like my lowers that I have, like, and I don't really have lowers in the side of it, but a lot of people just kind of let it go, right? We'll clean it up. But my lowers are like the expressions that the flowers are putting out now. It's crazy. Like it's just different. Down there? It's just like they actually, I won't say like top canopy finish. Like nugs, but the finish of them. Yeah. I'm like, damn. Yeah, they look finished, even if they're not going to be that's what
as
I'm
dense
saying.
And heavy, but they look right. They're not just that light green, fluffy lime stuff anymore. Yeah. Well, we got some cool stuff actually going to be down at the show. So that's why I'm like smiling. We're talking about the look and everything.
Yeah.
And, like there's some cool stuff going on.
Yeah.
I met with Rob. I caught him on the way in, and I'm happy with what we got going on down there.
Yeah. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
Good time. We were talking about hop latent virus. We'll just finish with this segment. But we were talking about hop latent virus in Michigan. Is it a big problem out there right now?
Fuck yeah.
Where isn't it a big problem?
For the people who don't test, it's not a problem.
Yeah, because they don't know. See, the thing is there's, my whole entire thing is that there's, and I'm not going to throw anybody on blast. I really would if this was like a different type of podcast and throw some names out there that like I really, on the Michigan side, that I really want to throw on blast. I'm still like friends with them, but if I ever saw like two of these guys, I would knock their fucking teeth out. Because I've
purposely selling HIV, not caring.
So what they're doing is that they're claiming that they're getting negative tests, which they are, right? They're getting negative tests until they stress that plan out just a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's like exploded, right? And I had it happen to. We brought in some cuts from it. We tested it, thank God. But we've had some cuts where we've gotten in and like we got there and when we're like sitting there, we're like, that doesn't look right. Just throw it, But we have the test results from it, and it's like, okay, well, I'm done trusting like anybody. It doesn't care who it comes from, and it's going crazy because there's people like I literally just had somebody hit me up for a state licensed facility that wants 4,000 cuts. Their whole entire facility just got hit from it. And I was like, what do you mean you want 4,000 cuts? And then I was like, Dylan, hold on. I'm going to holler at you after this podcast.
Dude, it's crazy, though, because, like, there's this, I don't know if you guys are MMA fans. I'm a huge MMA fan, and the Diaz brothers had this saying that, like, everyone in the UFC is on steroids. They're like, fucking everyone's on steroids, because there's that whole debate about steroids. And I feel like that way with HIV, with cannabis. Like, I'm like, no matter what you do, with how much cuts are sold, the rate that they're sold, how many legal facilities depend. I know a lot of facilities, they don't even veg. They depend on you or your clone shop, and I want flats of clones, and you're opening yourself up for that possibility of damage, right, from this virus. And like I test and we test, but sometimes I feel I'm like, the best thing I can do is use my eyes, be super sanitary, and try to practice and when I bring things in, segregate them, because I've tested things through Toomey, I've tested things locally, I've tested and gotten different results left and right. I've had something test positive that I've ran and was the strongest plant and then I've tested that through another organization and it was clean. I've tested stuff that passed and then we ran it and it studded out, right? So I've just seen so many inconsistencies as well. It's a huge problem. I think it's a plague.
I think the only thing you have to make meristem tissue culture a standard, period.
Yeah, 100%.
Meristem is the key word.
Yeah, meristem tissue culture has to be a standard in the industry.
100%.
At every single facility, anywhere, if they're bringing cuts in, everything comes from meristem tissue culture.
Right.
It's the only way it's going to be able to be fixed.
And I honestly don't even know if that's going to fix it. I think it's so far past at this point in time with breeders that have bred with it and have it going on right now. I mean, there's studies coming out that they're finding it in seeds.
Lots of diseases are spread via seed coat.
Yeah.
And so you have to do seed
obviously.
coat sterilization.
But you get what I'm saying. The other on top of that.
I think you know some of my background, right? UC Davis, heavily. And we fought with disease all day long. People were keeping lineages of plants for decades that were just contaminated. And sometimes you would have to grow them just so they could get the genetic expression out of them because they needed to basically just turn over the next generation of plants. And so you'd do seed treatments. You'd have to accept some of it. You'd have to cull plants. We would do batch testing. You know, you'd take 40 plants together and test them all as one. And if that batch failed, then you throw all 40 of them out. And like, you know, you got to get efficient with your testing also. You can't test every cut, but you got to find a way to do it. But, you know, there is a way to clean up plants. It's just not simple. You know, I mean, there's entire industries built around cleaning up plants and genetics. That's, you know, go look at the wine industry. You want to see what it looks like? Look there, because that's been a huge part of what they do, is giving out clean stuff. You know, and I'm using the wine industry because I'm from UC Davis is my background, but you know, they have a foundation plant program. They provide clean plants, you know, and it's a big deal, and they fight viruses all the time. And this is multi-billion-dollar industry also. High-value crops, you know, it's there. It's much more mature, and they're still fighting that problem. This industry doesn't have that kind of support right now. And everybody's a good grower. They exist. We have great genetics. We don't have a lot of the foundational work on the other side. And I think that's, if this industry is going to mature in that direction, that's going to have to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
How did they do it at UC Davis?
Tissue culture was a lot of it, and testing, and they would cycle through again. So the original stuff, before they did a lot of the genetic testing, they would actually use rating scales. So a lot of these nurseries started this work back with different flowers. They were looking for viruses, and they would take it in and they'd basically do duplications in tissue culture, and they'd have a 1 through 4 rating system. They used the best sensor on the planet, the human being, and that's what they do. They'd look at the plant, they'd make a judgment call, and then they'd bring it back in and re-tissue culture. Now they can do it a little bit better. They'll take tissue culture from, you know, a couple cells from a meristem, you know, and then sometimes they'll treat it with different antibiotics or antiviral chemicals to try to clean it up and kill the disease off. And then you start with a couple cells of meristem.
Meristem is where it's at.
Yeah, you really have to. I mean, otherwise there's too many cells. If you're getting something, you know, even a micropropagation's too big. You got to get down there, like tiny, you know, and that's, and then you got to come back, and that takes months. You know, it's a slow process, but that's probably the only way you can truly get past it. You know, some of these, sometimes you can also breed, make a cross, and if it's a disease that's not transmitted inside the seed and only on the seed coat, then potentially you can do seed coat treatments, and you can get some things going on there. But obviously, if you're making crosses, you just change your genetics, you know? It's a clone-heavy industry.
I know for a lot of, like, you know, for me, not being in the legal market, like, you know, I'm a caregiver grower, you know, and, like, I've had anywhere from 10 to, you know, a couple hundred lights and anywhere in between. And, like, it's like, for me, like, when I start thinking about, like, this other avenue thing I got to think about now, it used to be just, like, mildew and bugs. That was all I had to think. Now it's, like, this whole viroid thing. It gives me a headache. Like, when I got to start thinking about it, I got quoted the other day, like, 50 grand to put this lab in my barn.
What kind of lab?
A full tissue culture lab. I had this company come out.
50,000.
50,000 fully outfitted, and then I would have had to hire somebody to pretty much run that. I don't have the time to do that, right?
50 G's is cheap.
But, yeah.
50 G's is cheap?
50 G's, but it was a big room. It was
For a
all the
full
equipment,
tissue
the mini
culture?
splits.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in Michigan that are trying to do that and get in full tissue culture, and to be able to do it, it's getting the varietals in, right? But other than, I'm talking like we've had a couple of people come talk to us, like, it's not just like the hood, it's not this, it's not that, you know, like there's a lot of other equipment that they're trying to bring in and do that, and then starting.
Well, it's either that or you pay, like I was, and I have, you know, in my stable right now, and I know I have more than most, but probably somewhere between 60 to 70 different genetics. So if I got to get on a monthly testing plan, what am I looking at? I looked into it. I'm spending thousands a month
it's not
to
cheap.
send in to either Toomey or Deep Roots local to continue to test cultivars. And then what's the best practice with that? I would just take clones, and from a small plant, I'd take it as early as I could, take my sample and send it in. And then 2 weeks later, I read something online that says, oh, you got to take it from my big plant and here. So it is the headache it just gives me as like a guy that's just trying to survive, right, in the industry.
I think for you and having a genetics business, you and Mobile J, I think tissue culture, the 50 grand's worth it all day.
It is, and it's something that we're gonna do for sure. It's either that or I'm just gonna go back to like monocrop and Gorilla Glue.
You have to, because
It's the worst thing I've heard all day.
The insurance policy on
Yes.
because any tissue culture, you have tissue culture, you could do meristem tissue culture.
100%.
It's just a process.
Yep.
Right.
Well, we want to do it on our own genetics that we're breeding.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
I'm looking at the future of like, but there's a lot of home growers that we deal with too, like that have been decimated. I mean, I got 6, 8 like guys that like they're like can't pay their mortgage now because they got HLV, and I got to go tell them, hey, well, you should get a lab. It's gonna cost you like 50 grand.
And I'd love
you know
to
what I mean? And it's just now you got to worry about it from seed, and it's like, I mean, I know some people that's decimated some of my friends, like small 10, 12 like grows where that's how they make their money to support their family, and it's like. And then they spend 6 months trying to diagnose what's wrong, taking runoff numbers. This was a year or two ago. We didn't know it was this prevalent in the industry. They're taking runoff numbers for 3-4 weeks, thinking it's something they're doing. Why are their plants dudding? Why is it?
Yep.
It'd be nice to see if you could have something like if someone would come out, even a non-meristem like TC, to be like affordable to people, because a lot of people don't know who to reach out to. There's not a lot of like open tissue culture facilities that are, like caregivers would be like, oh, here I'm sending this, here I'm doing this. There's a lot of people that are doing it themselves, but there's not enough education out there. Non-meristem though, that's the thing. Meristem, it has to be on like at least on the commercial level.
Nah, I mean, does meristem has to be on a commercial level?
Depends on how good you get. I mean, and it depends on the size of your meristem and how clean you can get.
Could you teach Max how to do meristem?
Yeah.
Tissue culture.
How's your eyesight?
All right.
That's why you
Wear
use
glasses if I need to.
a microscope.
Yeah.
The only thing that you need
I mean,
extra to do meristem tissue culture is a microscope.
Yeah,
Right,
and
but
a steady hand in practice.
sure.
And then it's the follow-up. You're talking about how do you protect your genetics, right? I mean, that's a big deal, and how, for you, it's going to probably come down to isolation, securing a facility, and getting it away, basically. And you're going to have to get protocols in place, because a lot of the big places that provide genetics, they aren't actually testing everything every month, every year. That's, like you just said, wildly unaffordable, and the tests only have an accuracy of 90%. Well, that's not good enough anyway. So you have to come up with a different program, and you have to come up with rating plans, and we'll talk about this after the podcast too. But there's a lot of work that can go into it, and I can probably point you in the right direction for programs you should replicate.
Yeah.
That would probably help you at least avoid 80% of the problems. You're right. It's a huge fucking headache. Yeah. Like, I grew plants in research greenhouses that were intentionally infected with some of the nastiest diseases in California, like tomato diseases in the middle of tomato country and rice diseases in the middle of rice country in California, and that was their goal. So we had to operate around them while keeping things that were adjacent clean and happy and healthy. And so I feel your pain when you say it's a huge headache, because the people who do the work on that, they run around dirty-handed, touching doorknobs all day long and wearing their same lab coat in the place every day. And I'm having a heart attack and a headache. So, people, training, protocols, it's a lot of the work. And it is huge work. And, those genetics are your livelihood. So, and then you just need a plan for what you do if they do test or you do have some problems. So.
If you had your choice, would you put a tissue culture lab in your facility?
Just outsource it at that point in time.
Why would you outsource it?
Just because it would be something more added on, unless like if I knew there are some very reputable ones, right? I think I'd become too OCD over it and want to oversee the whole thing personally myself than trust somebody else if it came into that in the TC wise.
You know what I think? I think that these dudes charging 50 grand brainwashed all of us.
I think so too.
I think they brainwash all of us into telling us that it's too difficult and you can't do it. That's what I think.
I mean, that's...
So they could charge us the 50 grand.
So, like, personally yourself, what do you think? I mean, you've done meristem-wise?
Yeah, say again?
Meristem-wise? I mean, you've dabbled in it?
Yeah, it's doable. I mean, they teach undergrads to do it all day long. It's really just about sterile technique.
But what would the cost to put something, not just like the personnel to run it, the cost of something to put something like that together personally with the right equipment?
You're culturing plants, luckily. And so then a lot of the expense and difficulty comes into different plants are much harder to initiate growth, right? So it can take years for certain species of plants. If you get a meristem, it can take years. Cannabis is not that. It's not going to take you years. You have to be patient, but there's nothing that's actually going to stop you from doing it. Like, you already possess the skills. You just told me how anal you were about your room. We just talked about this beforehand, you know. We talked about some of the frustration, like, you know, what you deal with. If you already have those qualities, you're qualified to do it.
Right.
It's just a matter of following a procedure, following a protocol, and that's what it comes down to.
Well, having the proper SOPs, but like I'm just talking about like the cost. Like, what would you see the cost in placement to do something like that?
$5,000.
$5,000. I mean, how nice would it be if Athena came out with your own meristem? You know, I'm just messing with you. No, I'm just messing with you. But like, that's the thing is that
yeah, stoners, dude, stoners.
I think a lot of the problem is that it gets sold to that, and it's like that, and they're like, oh, well, here you need.
Well,
you know, this hood, you need this, and then also don't forget about all the HEPA filter vector, you know, like everybody's
willing to try.
Everything.
They've been terrified. Right. Everybody's been terrified because they think that failure is going to be some catastrophic thing.
So you think
failure mostly comes down to you got to throw away some Petri dishes.
Right.
What is that at the end of the day? That's not a huge failure, right? Then you try again. That just means that your protocol was a little bit off. But it's not like you created more disease.
Right.
You know, you didn't. The worst case scenario is just not that worst case, I think is what it comes down to. It's time, without a doubt. But the flip side is, you know, the risk reward, right? If you get it right, now you have a clean mother plant that you can take thousands of cuttings off of that you know are virus-free.
Right.
I mean, what's that worth to you?
Hey, Chris, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So like in a different industry, like you mentioned tomatoes or let's say leafy greens or anywhere else, are they going to go pay $50,000 for tissue culture? Or are they going to be like, dude, you're retarded and you're in the wrong industry? Is it like industry to industry? For instance, like you can go by Rockwell, Grodan Rockwell, and a tomato farmer does not pay what we pay for Grodan Rockwell, right? Like there's green tax is real, right? It is definitely a real thing. So sometimes, you know, even when I was getting this quote done, I did have that moment where I'm like, am I just getting treated like this because I fucking grow pot?
I'll tell you right now, lab equipment, all this stuff everything's gotten wildly expensive to some level.
Right.
You know, like, because I always approach things and never tell people I need anything for cannabis. It's just for research. So you're getting a little bit hosed on that end, but what the size and scope is dependent on the difficulty of the tissue culture.
Right.
So for something that's more easily tissue cultured, it's going to be a lot cheaper. And then it comes down to, was it developed over years, like something like if you're doing like grapes, it's a longer crop. I mean, we're not talking about a short-term annual. It's going to be a different thing you're shooting for, you know, and preserving genetics that are 100 years old or something. It's a different process. It might take 2 years to go from meristem to plant. That's a long time. So that is going to be obviously a very different process and procedure. And so it's going to be more expensive. If you're talking about something like tomatoes, you can grow diseased tomatoes, harvest the seeds, and just do seed sterilization technique for most of these things anyway. And then they'll just select the good ones. You know, like it's a different process. So I think it really... Mom, I told you not to call.
So since cannabis is such a fast-growing plant, it's relatively easy to do tissue culture.
Tissue culture, at least from what I've seen, you know, and talking with Jungle Boys and other people who do tissue culture and cannabis, it is not a challenge. You know, it's mostly follow the procedure. It's sterile technique now. You're back down to sterile technique. And that's something that people can get trained to do. You know, it's that simple. You know, and like I said, what's the risk? You throw away a few Petri dishes, you know?
No, I hear you. I haven't even tried to think about it on the side because honestly, I got more deterred. It wasn't the price. It was the length when I'm talking to people and they're like, oh, like we can, if I'm sending it out, they're like, oh, it's, 6 months to a year before you like get it back, right?
And are you going to get one plant back or what are they giving you back? I mean, I guess that's the real question too.
That's the whole entire thing, you know, and then.
Does it come with a certification that it's clean?
That's, this is where all
pay
these
extra
start.
for that, don't you?
Yeah.
Of course. And then it might be more months. Now, don't get me wrong.
And then they pay you, don't forget about the storage fee. The storage fee.
Storage fee too.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It might take that long. If you have primo genetics and you only have one plant and it is, and it has virus, you might take multiple meristem cuttings to get to the results you want. That might be a true case. If you want to save that genetic, that might be your only last choice. So then it might be longer, you know? That's a risk, but it seems worse if you have to outsource that and have somebody else do it. Then it's obviously more expensive, right? If you had your own lab, then it's just mostly a little bit of time. and then the testing itself. But you're going to be paying, if they're cleaning up a plant for you, you're paying for the testing also, because it's not like you're getting testing for free. They're going to charge you double.
Yeah.
Because they're double tax. That's the way it's definitely going to happen. So
I think
I don't know. If it's available, I bet people would use it.
I think a big one too is retaining your genetic library, because going up to my spot, I'm walking through the garden, I'm like, hey, where's the sherb head? We got rid of it, low THC tester, beautiful plant. I'm like, man, fuck. Like, we should have kept that.
Right.
And it's gone forever, and we don't have it. Well, we could have just done a tissue culture cut and held it on the shelf for 2 years and not touched it.
Right.
And it would have been fine.
Man, that's sick. I don't think about that enough.
Oh, because you could.
Yeah, because it may
imagine-
come back. THC numbers, and it may not matter in 18 months. You're going, fuck, where's that sherb head?
Yeah.
She was a banger in every other area.
Yeah, but
right?
or you could be, say you have a list of customers and everyone's asking for that sherb head. Like, okay, let's bring it back. Bring it out.
Or if you get a better breeding program in place, like maybe you want to get that for some crosses. Like, there are reasons to preserve genetics, for sure.
Yeah.
JB does that pretty well. With
Oh,
bringing
they have-
back stuff.
they have
Like
about
they'll rerun like a genetic they haven't in years.
Yeah,
I love that when they do
They have
that.
4,500
fun.
genetics. at all times.
4,500?
No, 4,000 to 500.
Oh, I was about to say. Oh my God,
4,500.
4,500.
But they
is still-
also-
You got to step your game up.
They also keep their males.
Yeah.
They also keep their males.
Yeah.
The males that they cross with.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
If you want to have a breeding program, you have to have good pollen from a male.
Yeah, I hear you, but I mean that's a lot of stock.
But it's not.
But if it's
not
in
a
tissue
lot.
If it's
culture.
in non, yeah, exactly.
There you go.
I'm just saying, if it's not in tissue culture, it's like I'm just thinking the square footage that would take up.
Exactly.
In tissue
But if-
culture, it's what, 2-3 ccloning racks, right? You know.
No, it's
Yeah, how many petri dishes can you put in it? Yeah,
that by that, that wide.
for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you need somebody to curate the collection for sure, but it's not like trying to take more cutting. You're just maintaining a population in a totally different fashion. And they're sealed. Nobody's touching the actual plant, so it's not getting affected or infected by disease.
I mean, think about it. Jungle Boys does a cross, and they did it with a male, and the seeds that came out of that, they sold, and everyone's just producing some of the craziest fire from that male, but then they don't have the male anymore.
Yeah.
But now they do, because it's all in tissue culture.
No, I hear you, and it's crazy on some of the varietals that people just like, oh, we lost that, or hey, it got let go, or it did that, because there's definitely some that like I let go 10 years ago that now I'm just like, damn, I really wish I had that cut. And even though it's a cut from 10 years ago, doesn't matter. It's just like I still, could have done something with it. And I think that's the other thing with like hash strains. There's a lot of things that people are overlooking on the hash wise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. Anytime I want something back, I just call Dylan. Pretty much.
You have everything?
And then I'm just crossing my fingers. I'm like, fuck, I hope I'm not giving out HLV.
That's why you have a headache. Exactly.
It's a fucking headache. I mean, I swear I talk about HLV more than anything else.
For sure.
Feels bad.
For sure. I mean, I understand. I know what comes of it, so.
No, I think the biggest two benefits are the clean genetics and then storing your genetics for years without
I
touching
never
them.
thought about that, because right now, instead of having those 80, I'd have like 8.
Yeah.
The other 72, I'll be like, I'll bring it back next year.
Yep.
And they're sitting on ice.
One, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Once you've tested
I'm
and
gonna
cleaned, you have
water
some
and clone
cuttings.
it down and keep cloning.
Your
it.
testing program just changed, right?
well, but here, and I hate to say this, so like, okay, how is it for testing for you guys? You guys have like in here in Nevada, is it stringent microbial and THC and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Have you guys visited your testing facilities that you guys go to? Like, have you personally visited
No,
that?
I haven't personally, no.
Okay, so
should.
I visited a couple of testing facilities in Michigan, right? So what they do is on Monday, like you have your harvest, you get it, yeah, it's all, you get your like 14-day, like we do a 14-day hang, and then after we do a 14-day hang, it's normally about another like 10 days of trimming, and then after that, it's like make sure like while it's getting dropped, whatever gets dropped and bucked and trimmed at that point in time, then it just gets like bagged, and then it just gets opened after that with like the turp block bags or whatever it is, till the whole entire harvest is done. The whole entire harvest is done. I just tell by just, you have a hydrometer, you can do whatever, but Feel good to test, right? That's where I wanted the moisture content. These assholes do, what I found out, is if you go in on Monday, what they do is they plate it first for microbials. But they put your shit in a refrigerator. They don't just do like straight, like, oh, here, we're going to test for THC. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So if you get it on Monday at the end of the day, they put it, and they don't plate it. They put it in, let's say they pull it out on Tuesday morning. So then whatever moisture content that you have in there, it goes 3 days, 4 days in there, and then they test for THC, maybe on day 5. So it's sitting in a refrigerator, and I was like, that's where you keep my fucking weed?
Yeah.
You know, but that's what they have to do for sterile purposes. And I'm like, well, shit. I was like, why don't you just test the THC content first with the moisture content? What do you guys test to see what the moisture's at? And then they're like, well, yeah, you know, I think there's too many variables here on the testing market on the things, because I was like, you know, because they can't manipulate a sample and no one wants them to manipulate a sample. But when you're talking about a THC percentage, like a lot of us do, because even though you really probably love that flower, probably yielded great, and it was a low tester. Yeah. That's the only reason it got X'd, is because it was a low tester. Now let's say you talk to a testing facility and you're like, hey, I know you can't manipulate a sample. You can't physically like dry a sample down. You can't do that. But why can't you have like some crazy dehues that are inside this room just drying? Like you pull your sample out, and as soon as you do that, it's like, you know, there's so many different variables that these testing facilities are doing. So there's some testing facilities that are getting crazy high THC percentage numbers and some that are getting low. Yep. Because they're doing those variables. They're plating it right away. As soon as they get to as soon as they get there, they're doing THC right away, and then they're plating it for the microbials, for the colony forming units for it. But then there's other facilities that are like, oh, here, we're going to plate it, and then we're going to leave your shit in a refrigerator for 4 days. I mean, how's that going to affect your actual potency from it?
Are you sending out the same sample to 2 labs simultaneously from time to time, just to kind of?
Oh yeah. So like
how do you like those results?
That pisses me off more than anything.
I know how bad those are.
We send out a lot of samples.
But here's the difference here in Michigan. The lab comes there and picks the samples. So they physically come there. There's no fuckery on it. Like you can't just be like, oh, yep, I'm putting this sample in the bag. Oh, these ones are going. Like, here you go.
Yeah, same one. Same here in Nevada.
Yeah,
they come and pick it.
There's other states that aren't like that. You send your samples to them. Oh.
They just roll it around in keef and send it on its way.
But you get what I'm saying? Like there are
52%.
Right.
We'll put a little too much keef on that one.
Yeah. You know, that's what some states are doing. I mean, like, I've heard crazy shit from what people are doing. You know, drying it down to, like, 6% moisture content. And then, like you said, like, keefing it, like, doing, like, whatever. But then I had a homie out in OKC that did the exact same thing, and he did it. Dude, everything failed for heavy metals because you have a higher chance of failing for heavy metals.
I heard OKC's like the wild west right now down there, dude.
So, yeah. I don't know. It's to let go of varietals because of certain things like that. It's just heartbreaking because it's like, damn, that's some of the best smoke that I've smoked in my life is like 16, 17%. Yeah. Testing wasn't an issue until like the last couple of years.
I'm a fan of lower THC weed. I like flavor, but I get high as a kite these days. So I'm like,
yeah, me too.
You guys get me fucking ripped and wasted. Henry's gonna be here. He's gonna get me shit-faced in about 1 puff.
Everyone's got to keep an eye.
I know how this is gonna go. He's gonna be like, look what I rolled you. You're right. It's gonna be a fucking hash joint only.
No, this is a good podcast, guys.
Well, I appreciate you for having us.
Yeah, appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, it's just the beginning. We literally just got off planes.
I'm
fucking starving.
Again?
We're gonna go to.
Starving.
He wasn't lying. He said he was gonna be super hungry after this.
Yeah.
No joke.
It's gonna be a big week. Tomorrow's the first day of the show. A lot of things dropping. We got 3 things dropping, and we're really excited about it. We've been working on it all year.
Yeah. I need a break, buddy.
Yeah. It's been a lot of work.
I don't even
Don't
know
worry,
hey.
You don't know what it is?
I don't know what it is. I mean, I kind of have an idea.
I got a hint. I had an inside.
This makes it all worth it for me, though. You know?
Yeah.
This does.
I didn't get confirmation, though. I got enough to just have dreams at night about what it might be.
I
Just
think
enough.
I
Just the
think
tip.
for us, like,
Just a tip.
yeah, it's cool to do stuff that's real and that's really genuinely impacting people's lives in a major way.
I want to ask you a question before we get done.
Yeah.
What's your? No, it's not about what's being released. What's your a passion? What's your passion behind all this? Like, where does it come from behind all this? Because I think a lot of people I think I know, but I think that I think it's something I want other people to hear where your passion comes from.
Shopping at a hydro store, I think I was like 21, 22, and getting knowledge from the guy working the counter, and I go and I put all of my debt on credit cards to build a 16 liter, rent a house, move out of my parents, when I was like 19, and rented a house, put myself in a ton of debt on credit cards because I knew how to build my credit at a young age, and saved up all my money to do this and get advice from the guy behind the counter at the hydro shop. And I'm not saying all hydro shops are like this, but you're relying on the information given by that person, right? And you go and you put your life on the line and you throw it all in and it flops. And you go and you look for more knowledge and flops again. And you're just, next thing you know, I'm $200,000 in debt because I've been spending money on nutrients and fertilizer and rent and this house while trying to run a small pressure washing business that I was pressure washing and cleaned windows, right? That was my main business where I made money.
Like decks and stuff?
I pressure washed like gas stations,
Nice.
malls.
Nice.
Yeah, I had like 2 trucks. I'd work from, I'd start about midnight and get off about 3, 4 in the morning. Sometimes later, just depends. Go run my hydro shop, check in, try to sleep a little bit in the middle of the day, do some lights, had some lights. And I just think that from my personal experience, losing everything and having to file bankruptcy because of the knowledge I was given and how much I invested into these different grows and putting it all on the line and just failure after failure. Like, I don't want anybody to go through that shit. Yeah. And so when we're giving out knowledge as a company, I think what drives me, and I think you as well, and you, our team,
Sure, dude,
is driving other people's success.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why I started my Instagram was to go find knowledge. I was on the forums back in the day, Ivan, all these guys. And I took this job to help the next guy, I was in a lot of these guys' shoes, and I put out information just to help people, and that's why I have the Instagram following I do. Whether you use it or not, whatever, but I just like helping people. So that's why I took this job, and it's been a blessing, man.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it feels good.
Great company, dude.
There's a lot more important things in life than money.
No, there's time.
It's
in
a
helping
byproduct
people when you can
of
do
hard work. That's period. And passion. Like the one thing I love about working with this group, and one thing I've always respected, because I knew you were going to say something along those lines. And now when you just said that story, now I know. I just instantly thought of Owen. He's not here, but Owen's story that he told last year about going to Home Depot and going in debt on a credit card to build his grow. Yeah. Now I knew, because he's like, Brandon sent me lights, and so just all these things, they just make sense to me now about like what you probably saw in him when you heard his story, right? Because you were there. Yeah. Right? You don't want to see anybody else go through what you had to go through, and you don't want to see him go through what you just went through. Yeah. And I'm the same way. You know what I mean? I take time out of my day to try to like press this information, this collective knowledge that we have as a group on people if they want to accept it, because like you don't have to stumble, you don't have to fall, and like we'll be here to help you, and we're gonna put in the time. Like even with Fade, we put in almost a year's worth of collective stuff behind. It's not just a white bottle that they're gonna see in a 5-gallon jug, right? It's like round after round after round where we're risking crops. We're like, we're going to fucking do this. We're going to make it right. We're going to keep trying, you know, just to put something collaboratively together, you know, because we want to produce better stuff for everyone. It's fucking sick.
I think Athena as a whole, the villain that we're up against is misinformation.
Yep.
That's what we're fighting.
Damn, that's deep. I mean, like, really, when you actually think about that, that is. It's a problem. A lot of things that I've personally myself seen and talked with people that are running certain things. And they'll message me and I'll answer it. I'll be like, hey, what's going on? And I'll give it time. My wife hates it, like, absolutely hates it. But I know personally I've changed quite a few people's lives from being, because they put in the time to it. I gave them the pieces, they put in the time. So not just like, oh, I changed it just from spending I'm talking months. Like, there's a guy over in Africa, right? That like, this is what he does, right? So I actually got some cuts out to him, believe it or not. And he's like,
Respect.
yeah.
Africa?
Exactly. In Africa.
All right, Dan, you're the clone plug. Hey, Chris, this guy's the clone plug. Africa.
Bro,
No.
you better
Get a
be
hold of
careful.
him.
Now they got you on recording of this shit.
Right. Well, hey, it's all good. There's there were hemp, but you know, like the whole entire that shit's legal, I think, in Africa,
it's,
anyways.
something like that.
Yeah. But the whole point is like it changed his life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's probably trapping like crazy now out there, but he didn't like he had this like
What do you send him,
solo
Cushmans?
cup, huh?
Would you send him Cushmans?
Yeah.
Yeah, that dude's just
I'm not
pounding out
even
Africa.
joking,
It's
right?
full
Oh,
of
it's the perfect
Cushmans,
one.
bro.
Dude, the
I'm serious. I did.
that
So-
Cushman's one, dude, that's the highest tested THC we have right now.
Yeah, but it also smashes at the same. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
Greg's gonna be here in a little bit, anyways, too. But that one smashes on yield, it smashes on everything. The whole point is like it changed this guy's life, and to be able to do that, like where you're just saying. I mean, I had it where, I got at one point in time, I got a pistol up to my head, and I got robbed of like 15 units, and I needed that money to pay my electrical. And then like make my money that I was gonna make for like everything at that point in time. And then I'm like coming home and I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do now? Like how am I gonna hustle in order to like make this? Like I have like 5 days and lights are turned off. Like how am I gonna put this together? Like I needed that. And then it's like, made it happen, right?
Yeah.
So that's just where it comes from. So I resonate from that.
No,
I
thanks.
mean, that's a big thing.
Cultivators have so much adversity. If you really think about it, I mean, we're worried about the law. How do we pay this electric bill? It's too high. Do I pay it in cash or credit card? Trying to find the right place to cultivate. Worried about the landlord. You know, you're worried about
HLV.
all these factors.
Everything you said, actually, he just heard HLB.
Yes.
So the one thing that you don't want to worry about is the information that you're getting from the company that you're buying from.
For sure.
And that's always been our thing, right? I mean, it's the disinformation. You know, I sat here, and for me, this is how we found each other, right? And I want to go back a little bit to that is everybody in this whole company loves to help people, like almost to a fault, right? You talk about your wife getting mad. I'm sure we've all had that conversation with our significant others.
Right.
Of like, why? Why now? Because they need help, and now is when they need help.
Right.
But that's just what we do, you know. I mean, that's part of our culture entirely, and that's why we're all here, right? We want to help, and part of that is getting rid of the misinformation, right? The BS, the 32 bottles, all of this thing. 140 different greenhouses and research projects, and nobody grew a single research plant with any of that bullshit. Zero. You formulate across the board, and no single scientist believed they needed any of that BS. So, turns out you don't need any of that BS. And then you grow fire crops. So for me, it was frustrating. That's what got me into this, was that none of it lined up. You do actual science, you do actual research, and it all says you do this. And then you would go and look at the cannabis industry, and they'd say, do all this. And it was none of this. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell to make of all this. And it's a shock when you're like, I'd go to the grocery store, same thing. I'm like, none of this works with what's supposed to be done. And then it's migrated, right? And slowly just keep pushing the same Tell the truth, give the right information, let the grower do their job and stop fighting them for being able to do a good job.
Clean, simple nutrients.
Yeah.
With the right information behind it. With proven results and a track record of testing things.
You don't have to add all of those things.
My grandpa used to say, "Keep it simple, stupid."
Yeah.
That's what he'd tell me.
Yeah.
They'd be like, "Huh?
Yeah.
Did you just call me stupid?"
So like, I think there's a misinformation too with Athena because I get a lot of people that hit me up and they think it's like some comp. I'm like, I don't know what other nutrients you guys have ran. This is the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. Seriously.
No, it is for sure.
They're like, I don't understand your stacking, and I see Max's chart, and I'm like, whoa, let's back up a little bit. As far as the feeding chart and the inputs, it is the easiest thing. So easy.
Well,
so
that's
simple.
The nutrients are simple, and so that way you can focus on those other pieces that are going to do the work.
Right.
Nutrients should be simple. We help you focus on
The plant.
stacking, EC, different cultivation techniques.
Yes.
That's more of the work that we're trying to help you out.
Right.
It should be simple on the nutrients,
Yeah.
and that's what we're trying to bring. And that's out there.
Kind of want to talk about pro and blended a little bit too, kind of coming off that, you talk about simple. They are simple, don't get me wrong, but blended is simple. Like you can push no runoff, heavy runoff, and you're going to see good results. Pro, there's a fine line. You could push little to no runoff for 3 days, and your EC is high in the medium, which is, it's not a bad thing. It's a really good thing. You can stack like, heavy bud sites come stretch doing that. So you got to obviously play around with it, but bro, like the stuff itself it just kills it no matter what. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long week, guys.
Yeah, right?
Yes, sir. I'm excited for it.
All right. Appreciate it. Let's go get some food.
Yeah, rock on.
All right.
Oh,
Thanks, guys.
Good one.